So let us continue with non-resident taxation. We are discussing section 9.1. Now my dear friends, section 9 was very big section, and it have lot of explanations, and those explanations are having lot of data. Now when I went through all these pages, which are more than 15-20 pages in your study material, I thought all these explanations may not be that much important from examination perspective. Yeah, definitely from knowledge perspective you can do the PhD in section 9.1, but right now we don't have that much time to invest only in one subsection of section 9. So what I have tried my level best to accumulate all the explanations in one place here, and I have tried to cut down some extra content, okay, according to me. But I'm telling you, if you want to have an expert understanding of section 9.1, you may go to your study mat, and from your study material you can read out all the points, and I'm guaranteeing you will understand each and everything if you know this much provisions. Okay, so let's start with the explanation to section 9.1. The first explanation that we have to read here, and this is on section 9.1.1. Any income accruing or arising to assessee in any place outside India, whether directly or indirectly, this is what the language we have heard, through or from any business connection. The whole game is on business connection. What do you mean by business connection? Is there any commercial substance? Is there any monetary limit? Exactly to what you call a business connection. As per DTAA chapter, they focus on permanent establishment, and their permanent establishment is clear. The definition of permanent establishment says the income of a foreign entity will become taxable in India only if foreign entity is having place of permanent establishment in India, that is fixed place of business. It's a fixed place of business, POB. Okay, if they are having fixed place of business in India, like branch office, like factory or warehouse, something fixed, something permanent, okay, then only the income should become taxable. But section 9.1 says no, we are not using the language of permanent establishment, we are using the language of business connection. And business connection means even a one transaction can be a connection, even a 2 lakh rupees can be a connection. So what exactly you wanted to say as a business connection? For that we are going to read this particular explanation. Or through any property in India, or through any asset or source of income in India. These two are very much common. The important area here is business connection. Or through transfer of capital assets situated in India. You know that in Vodafone case, in capital gain chapter, we have discussed this particular clause, that yes, if you have transferred the capital asset which is directly or indirectly located in India, or if it is deriving value from India, then it becomes taxable in India. Would be deemed to be accrued in India, it will become Indian income. That was the provision. Now explanation 1 to section 9.1 says there are certain activities, please do not treat those activities as a business connection, because if you treat them as a business connection, it will become income deemed to be accrued in India, and NR will be liable to pay tax. NR will be liable to pay tax in India unnecessarily. That will be an harassment in certain situation. So at least some exception, some concession, some relaxation we have to provide to non-resident, so that they can conduct these activities in India without having a fear of having business connection and having fear of taxation system of India in their mind. So what are those activities which are not business connection? So these activities are not business connection. Please understand, these activities are not business connection. In case of a business in respect of which all the operations are not carried out in India. So you are not carrying all the operations in India, only 1 or 2 back-end operations might be carried out in India. In the case of businesses of which all the income of the business deemed to be accrue or arise in India shall be the only such income as a reasonably attributable to the operations carried out in India. What they are saying, if there are 10 activities that you do, out of 10, 8 activities you are doing outside India, only 2 activities you are doing in India. How can you say the whole income is accrued in India? No. Majority activities were performed outside India. If you want to tax, you can tax, but only that much income which is attributable to the activities conducted in India. So please compute attributable income, proportionate income, reasonable income, and in transfer pricing provision we are having those mechanisms where we can deal with arm's length price. We can actually determine the transaction value, and according to transaction value you can take the tax. You cannot take tax on the global income of the entity just because they are having 1 or 2 transactions with India. Therefore, it follows that a part of the income which cannot be reasonably attributed to the operations in India, it is not deemed to be accrue or arise in India. If your government, if our law does not have provisions to determine the proportionate income, then none of the income will become taxable. No income can become taxable in India if we don't have the mechanism. Income attributable to the operations carried out in India includes, so what will it includes? The proportionate income, income from advertisement targeting customers residing in India or accessing advertisement through IPA located in India. They are saying this particular transaction will include, this is business connection, this activity is equal to business connection, and because it is a business connection, it is going to be taxable in India. Please understand, if some of the foreigners are targeting, you are watching YouTube in India, you are watching Netflix in India, and some company is putting, some non-resident is putting advertisement on that particular platform on YouTube or Netflix, and Indian audience is watching that particular advertisement. Don't you think by exhibiting advertisement to Indian audience or by targeting Indian audience, that advertisement company is earning a very good amount of money? And if answer is yes, then YouTube and Netflix, they are liable to pay tax in India for the advertisement which was reflected in India or by using IP address located in India. Okay, internet protocol. For this you have to learn equalization levy chapter. Okay, there is a whole chapter on this equalization levy. There you will understand it in better. Income from sale of data collected from the person residing in India or using IP address located in India, and income from sale of goods and services using the data collected from person residing in India or using IP address located in India. Please allow me to teach all these points in equalization levy chapter. Here, unless and until it is very much required, it will be a dilution to the original discussion. So let's not lose the track. We will discuss this IP address matter in equalization levy chapter. We are having whole dedicated chapter on this e-commerce transactions or e-commerce activity that is going to happen in India. Sir, purchase of goods in India for export. So some NR is buying goods from India. See, India is one of the leading exporter of tea, coffee, pulses, spices. So some non-resident is buying this particular goods from India to export. So he is not going to earn income in India. He is actually buyer of India. He is not a seller of India. So he has come to India to purchase a goods, and after purchasing these goods, is going to be these goods are going to be exported. So this activity should not be considered as a business connection. He is not doing business in India. He is doing business with India. Okay. Business with India is not taxable. Business in India is taxable. In case of a non-resident, no income shall be deemed to be accrued or arise in India to him through or from operation which are confined. Confined means only this much. Okay. Purchase of goods in India for export purpose. That's one thing. Collection of news and views in India for transmission outside India. So you know that many activity happens in India which are globally exposed or globally shown. So obviously collection of news and views in India for exhibiting outside India should not be considered as Indian income. Many foreign news channels, they come to India for collecting the news. They are giving them relaxation. Okay, you can collect the news and you can go and disclose this news outside India or globally. We don't care. It is not taxable in India. Shooting a cinematograph film in India. If some foreign, maybe Avengers or any foreign producer that you know have come to India in our Ramoji Film City or Mumbai Film City where they are going to shoot movie. If they have come to India for shooting movie, please understand, only a shooting movie here should not be considered that they are having business connection in India and now their global income should become taxable in India. No, that is not acceptable. In case a non-resident, no income shall be deemed to be accrue or arise in India through or any operation which are confined to shooting of cinematographic film in India if such non-resident is individual who is not a citizen of India, is a foreign citizen, or a firm which does not have any partner who is a citizen of India or resident of India, a company which does not have any shareholder who is a citizen of India. That means they are actually foreigner. They are not Indian creating entity outside India and shooting movie in India. The Indian people should not do that. Okay. Original foreign people, original foreign producers, they are not supposed to pay tax in India if they have come to India only for shooting purpose. Activities confined to display a rough diamond in specified notified zones. Please understand, India is one of the diamond, India is very famous for diamond polish, specifically Gujarat, Surat. Okay, they have, the whole globe is having blind faith on us that if you give the raw diamond to us, we will polish it and we will give you the fine diamond, and we will not do any manipulation in that. That's what the name of the Surat is. Okay, Surat is known for its royalty, its loyalty toward the diamond merchants. So they say, okay, if we come to India only to display, they are not selling it, they are just displaying it, only for exhibition they have come to India, that will not be considered as a business connection. They are not selling diamonds here, they are only exhibiting diamonds here. In case a foreign company engage in the business of mining of diamonds, no income shall be deemed to be accrue or arise in India to it through or from activities which are confined to display uncut, unassorted diamond in any special notified zone by central government and official gazette. Okay. Now explanation 2. So what do you mean by business connection? Okay, we understood that these are the activities should not be considered as a business connection and should not be considered as income accrued in India. But what do you exactly mean by business connection? So this is the definition, very simple definition. Business connection shall include, because it is inclusive definition, it includes all types of commercial transaction, my dear friend. Business connection shall include any business activity carried out through a person acting on behalf of the non-resident. So purchase, sale, provision of service, taking a service, all this is there. But some smart non-resident, what they used to do, some foreign company, they used to appoint only agent in India. Okay. Now they used to say, see, we are not having business connection in India, we have only agent in India, and that agent is earning income there, you can tax his commission. If we are doing the business of 1000 crore in India through this business, this agent, we are paying him 10 crore commission. Government of India should take tax on this commission, not on 1000 crore, because this foreign company does not have any business connection in India. They are only having agent. We are not even having showroom, we are not even having warehouse, we are only having agent in India. Therefore this foreign company is not earning from India. Is it true, my dear friend? Definitely no. Why? If foreign company is making sales of 1000 crore in India through this agent, and this agent is earning 10 crore, this 10 crore is definitely taxable because this agent is in India. Not only that, this 1000 crore should also become taxable. Obviously net profit we have to determine, but I am saying the business should become taxable in respect of this foreign company. Therefore they amended the definition by saying, if any agent is carrying out any activity on behalf of the non-resident, this agent is also a business connection of a foreign company, and now foreign company, whatever business they have generated in India, is liable to pay tax on that income. For business connection established, a person acting on behalf of the non-resident, please understand, must have an authority. Earlier it was, there is one more manipulation which is possible here. Look at this. He must have an authority habitually exercised in India to conclude the contracts. Earlier what was the law? The agent in India, this agent in India should conclude the contract, finalize the contract, finally sign the contract on behalf of the foreign company. If this much power is given to this agent, then only this agent is a dependent agent. Please understand. And dependent agent should become a business connection or permanent establishment. We call it DAPE, DEP in our taxation or international taxation. If this agent is a dependent agent, he is actually concluding the contracts. Obviously, he is a dependent agent having a permanent establishment, and then whatever revenue generated by this foreign company will become taxable in India. To escape from this clause, what these people used to say to this agent, you please arrange everything. You arrange the buyer, you negotiate the terms, do everything, but do not conclude the contract. Because if you conclude the contract, you will become a DEP. And if you become a DEP, you will be treated as a permanent establishment in India. Forget about business connection. You will be treated as a permanent establishment, and then we will not have any escape route. Please do not conclude the contract. Do not finalize the contract. For finalization, these foreign people will come to India and they will sign the contract. Only finalization will be done by foreigners, balance everything will be done by the agent. And therefore, last year, according to OECD recommendation, okay, we have amended the definition by including now habitually plays a principal role leading to conclusion of the contract. So either you concludes the contract or you are playing a principal role in concluding the contract. Now this planning is taken care. Now you cannot do this. Now even if this particular agent plays a vital role, a very significant role for the getting business for this foreign company, we will consider this as a business connection, and then this income is going to become taxable in India in the hands of the foreign company. In the name of the non-resident, for a transfer or ownership, of or the granting the right to use property owned by that non-resident for the provision of services of that non-resident in India. Any services that we are providing to this particular non-resident will be taxable in India. B, in case where he has no authority but habitually maintains in India stock of the goods or merchandise from which he regularly delivers the goods or merchandise on behalf of the non-resident. So you are not having authority to conclude contract and all, but you are a stockholder. You are holding all the raw material or finished goods in India, okay, and you are having authority to sell. That means you are also acting as an agent, and that is having business connection in India. Habitually secures orders in India mainly wholly for a non-resident purpose. Non-resident, then obviously you are having that NR is having business connection in India, and NR's income is taxable in India. Not only the commission earned by the agent, the whole income becomes taxable in India. Now explanation 3, income through business connection. So whether whole income become taxable, the global income of that particular entity taxable? No, only attributable income, only proportionate income. Where business is carried on in India through an agent specified in section 911, only so much of income attributable to the operations carried out in India shall be deemed to be accrued in India. Only attributable income, proportionate income. Next explanation, explanation 4. According to expression through shall mean and include and shall deem to have always included by means of or consequence of or reason of. This is the amendment which was taken after Vodafone judgment. I hope you remember the Vodafone judgment. If any entity, what was happening in Vodafone judgment? A Hong Kong based company have transferred the shares to a Netherlands based company. One NR has a transfer shares to another NR of a company which is located in Cayman Island. Okay. So shares located in Cayman Island are transferred to Netherlands based company. Netherlands based company has paid money to the Hong Kong based company. This transaction was done outside India. Agreement was executed outside India. Both the parties were non-resident. Money was not a rupees, it was a foreign currency. Obviously, prima facie doesn't look taxable in India. But then with a close scrutiny if you do, this Cayman Island based company was a sham entity, a shelf entity, which does not have any substantial asset. It had only investment from Hong Kong, and investment at it got the share capital from Hong Kong, and it invested in India, HEL, yeah, Hutch SR Limited, and this particular company was transferred to Netherlands based company indirectly. They did not transfer Indian entity, but they transferred the holding company of Indian entity, and therefore we said no, this Cayman Island company shares, have derived its value substantially from India, and therefore these shares are, though physically it is located in Cayman Island in low tax jurisdiction, in reality, in substance, indirectly it is located in India, and therefore the assessee, a transferor, is liable to deduct the TDS, and a seller is liable to pay capital gain tax. This was the amendment that we have done after losing the Vodafone judgment. If you are going to do something like this now, it is taxable. So that was done in 911. This is one of the consequential amendment that you should know. Further, an asset or capital asset being any shares or interest, okay, this is all these things are amended after Vodafone judgment, or interest in a company. So the Cayman Island company had an interest in an Indian company, or entity registered or incorporated outside India shall be deemed to be, or shall always deemed to have situated in India if the language is very important, if the shares or interest derives directly or indirectly its value substantially from asset located in India. This is the countermeasure to Vodafone. Now, due to this, many foreigners were afraid. Sir, we are having only 1% interest in India. Is it deriving value from India? Definitely yes. 1% is value derived from India. What is substantial and what is not defined here. They have just said substantial value. If you are a foreign company but you are deriving your value substantially from India, your shares are deemed to be located in India, and anybody who is purchasing and selling the shares of a foreign company which is the deriving value from India is liable to pay tax in India on capital gains. Therefore, we had to provide some relaxation. This relaxation is phase 3 amendment. Phase 1, we lost the judgment. Phase 2, we made Indian laws very stringent. Phase 3, we have given some relaxation to the foreigners. Okay, a shares or interest in a company or entity registered or incorporated outside India, obviously it is a foreign company, shall be deemed to derive its value substantially from India, whether tangible or intangible, if on the specified date, that means the last audited date or last closure date when you are doing the capital transaction, when you are transferring the shares, the value of Indian asset is 10 crore, it is more than 10 crore. So whatever assets you are holding in India, so you are a Cayman Island or Mauritius based company, your assets in India are more than 10 crore from your balance sheet. Okay, asset side, more than 10 crore assets are located in Indian entity. Not only that, this is the monetary limit, not only that, and these assets which are there in India from your balance sheet represent at least 50% of the value of all the assets owned by the company or entity as the case may be. Meaning thereby in percentile term, more than 50% of your assets are located in India, and in rupee term it should be more than 10 crore to activate these provisions. So we have given the relaxation to the small companies or companies are only who are having only 10%, 15% assets in India. Okay, so these both conditions should be complied, then only we will say, yeah, your foreign company is the deriving value from India and your shares are taxable in India if somebody transfer those shares to somebody else. No income shall be deemed to accrue or arise in India to a non-resident from a transfer outside India. Any shares of or interest in a company or entity registered or incorporated outside India, if following conditions, in the following cases, this is for the company, one NR is selling shares to another NR of this company. So this NR will be exempted if foreign company or entity directly owns assets in India and the transferor, please, obviously directly this company is owning shares in India, therefore the shares of this foreign company may become liable to India. This is the Cayman Island based company and this NR is afraid to sell the shares of this Cayman Island company because he knows if I sell the shares of Cayman Island company to another NR, now it is taxable, but we are providing some relaxation to this NR. Okay, you transfer, don't have to pay tax. So the foreign company or entity owns assets situated in India and the transferor, this NR, whether individually or along with associate enterprises at any time during the 12 months preceding the date of the transfer does not hold how much? Any management control in the foreign company. So he is not a management of this particular company. He's just an investor. He's an ordinary investor. And the voting power of the share capital is not exceeding 5%. Whatever he holds in this company is not exceeding 5%. That means he is holding less than 5%. Only 1% shareholder, 2% shareholder. Yeah, if it is a 90% shareholder, obviously he is a large shareholder. He might be influencing the decision of the foreign company. Then we will attract the provision. But if you are a small shareholder, you are not even holding 5% in the company, you don't own any management position, you are not a director, you are not a managing director, then sir, obviously you are just an investor and we have given you relaxation. Even though this company is earning value substantially from India, you are not supposed to pay tax on your transfer of shares which derives value substantially from India. Okay, not taxable. Relaxation. Go, enjoy. Foreign company, this is another example now, another situation. Foreign company or entity indirectly. So earlier it was directly, now it is indirectly. whole situations are same only, and transferor does not hold any management position in India, or even if he is having any right in the shares of the foreign company entity that would entitle him any management right. He doesn't own any management rights in that particular company, directly or indirectly. And even if he is owner, the ownership is not exceeding 5%. That also we have discussed now. In effect, what you should remember now from this, the exemption shall be available. Exemption means no tax on capital gain when you transfer the shares of Cayman Island company, shares or interest in or foreign entity, if he along with his associate enterprises. Why is it said along with associate enterprises? What he will say, if he holds 4% and his wife holds 4%, his mother holds 4%, his son holds 4%. So what they are trying to do, individually they are holding less than 5%, but in combined in one family they are having more than 15%, 20%. So they are saying no, don't do that kind of planning. Individually or along with your associate enterprises, neither holds right in the control or management, nor holds voting power in the share capital or interest exceeding 5% of the total voting power or total share capital of the interest in a foreign company or entity directly or indirectly in that holds the assets in India or derives value from India. So these are the all major explanation that I thought important. Please go through this, and we will discuss some Q&A. Through that it will put more clarity on the provisions. Thank you.